We had 2 questions posed to me during the last week that I thought we would address today. I'm going to start with the easy one, and then we're going to go to the hard one, okay? So I'll tell you what they are, and then you can decide if you want to stay for the second one or hop off now and come back. But here's what we're going to talk about. Someone asked me, how can you facilitate a homeschool friendship with people who don't have the same homeschool practice? So let's say you're an unschooler. You don't use curriculum. You like to follow interest-led learning from your children. You spend a lot of time on unschooling lists. You read John Holt. This is your world. But the community in your locality, not necessarily online, because online you can always, be selective about who you hang out with. But in person, a lot of times, you can't. You're in a co-op or you hang out in a group of homeschool support, a homeschool support group, and you've got someone doing a Becca. Or you have a friend who uses K-12 online school from Ohio. And you're like, we couldn't be more far apart in how we understand the homeschooling task. How many of you experience that right now? Or maybe you're a classical schooler and somebody else is a Sunlight schooler. Or maybe you're religious and the group that you're in is secular, or vice versa, where you have sort of a fundamental outlook that feels like it's at odds with people that you wish you could be friends with. Okay, so it looks like there's a bunch of you who feel that way and have experienced it. Yes. Oh, you keep telling them about me. Yep. So here's the thing that happens to all of us. We want to be in community. And part of the challenge of being a homeschooler is that we are alone, even during the day. It's not like we go somewhere. It's like we're just here by ourselves. And so we're looking for people who will, accept us and support us in our journey. But we're also insecure about what we're doing, right? We don't know if the choices we're making are going to result in this education we hope to achieve. So everybody is sort of eyeing each other, partly judging, maybe not in a harsh way, but sort of like evaluating, like, do I like the way her kids are turning out? Do I like what I hear coming out of that family's educational environment? And deciding if they want that for themselves. So it isn't like having your kids in school. If your kids are in school and you hang out with school moms, everybody's dealing with the same system, right? So most people are bugged at the counselors, irritated with the teachers, railing against the school board, but they're all doing it together. When we're doing homeschool, we're not all on the same page. We're all sort of staking out our own claim somewhere beyond the frontier of education. And none of us is 100% confident in it. We haven't done it before. So part of what goes on, someone says she's not conservative enough for one and not unschooly enough for another. What's going on is this. To feel secure, we add agreement to our lives. We look for people who agree with us. And that's true across the board, whether you breastfed or bottle fed, whether you work and put your kids in daycare or you stay home full time with your babies. This is nothing new. Parents do this all the time. And it isn't until you're on the other side of the parenting adventure, when your kids are grown, that you can kind of relax and laugh about it and be friends with people who did it really differently than you. Yeah, it is the mommy wars to a new level. That's right. And most of us are not at the extremes, right? In most cases, people are some sort of modified version of whatever the current trend is. So you might be interested in health and eating wholesomely, but that doesn't mean that you shop at the farmer's market every week. You might be interested in breastfeeding primarily, but you're not opposed to using a bottle if your husband wants to take you away for a weekend getaway. That's where most people live. You're going to unschool, but maybe you're also going to bring in a program for math. Like, most people find a way to embrace the vision of the radical idea, and then they modify it in some way. The people who are at the far ends of the continuum, who really hold to their principles and say, this is how it has to be, they sometimes feel the most offensive only because if you think about it as a line, they're way out here. They have so many fewer people who understand their choices. And I feel for those people. I've been that person. I was a home birther. My first baby was born in a home in Morocco. I wasn't even in the United States. I had all kinds of flack. I was looking for reinforcement that my choice was not crazy. I was way out on the end. I had never been in a hospital till my surgery last year. I've never had a baby in a hospital. I don't even understand the decisions women are making when they're in a hospital because I've never done it. So the danger then is for me to feel threatened by the challenges to me being willing to be way out at the end of the line. So here's what you need if you're way out at the end of the line on your ideology, where you're not sort of juggling two things. You need people who understand your strong commitment. It's good to be around people who really get it. Like if you're a person who's dealing with a lot of illness in your family and allergies, your need to be around people who put nutrition at a priority is going to be different than mine. And that's okay. But what it also means is that people who don't make the choice that you made, they're not bad or wrong. They just don't feel the same level of urgency to consider all the reasons that this made sense to you. That's the only difference. Yeah, you're on the other end, all about the drugs and bottles. Right, like there are people who are, and so then don't you feel judged? I remember one of my girlfriends only had 2 kids. She was a homeschooling mom with 2 kids. And, you know, I was in this group where women were talking all the time how they were being judged for having 5, 6, 7 babies. And this gal spoke up and she said, you might feel judged in the culture, but I homeschool and I'm judged in the homeschool culture for having a small family by choice. And it was like a revelation to me. I never even thought about the fact that she might have felt like she wasn't a good enough mother because she only chose to have 2 kids. So no matter where you are, there are these hierarchies that get set up about what it means to be truly committed. And truly committed is the danger. It's not the danger in your heart. It's okay to be truly committed to a point of view. You guys are truly committed. You're homeschoolers. Too late for you. You're already different than the rest of the culture. You've already become the hippie of the 21st century. You've already decided to stick it to the man. So you're already in a radical category. Do we really want to spend our time fighting inside the category and splinter ourselves into these tiny little pockets? I don't think we do. So what do you do when it's being done to you? Well, here's a couple things I want to suggest. The first thing is you have to start the chain reaction of acceptance. You have to start it. You can't subtly judge your friend. I'm going to give you an example of my own subtle judgment because it's always best if you tell on yourself. So when I was living in California, we lived in this condominium complex. You know, I had 5 little kids in a very small, tiny house-ish thing. It was a condo. It looked like an apartment. And across the driveway from us was a family that had 2 kids who were bottle fed. The mom worked, and they all went to day camps in the summer and preschool and then public school during the school year. And I was convinced that they were neglected children and would grow up to be unhealthy, unhappy adults. Because, hello, I was doing everything right. I home birthed, I breastfed, I was homeschooling, I was home all day with my children. How could I fail? I'm going to do it all correctly. My children will be perfect, and her kids are going to grow up and need therapy. So now I don't know if her kids need therapy, but the marriage is still together, so they're already ahead of me on one goal. And those girls are totally successful, adorable adults. That family is so tight. They never moved into a house. They stayed in this apartment for the entire lives of their kids. They go on these amazing trips together. And those girls were bottle fed, born in a hospital, went to public school and daycare. You know, like right? It's kind of interesting to be on this end and be able to report back. Now, do I regret that I didn't use bottles? Heck no, because I loved breastfeeding. I liked co-sleeping. I enjoyed my births. I don't regret any of it. But being judgmental didn't facilitate a better relationship with this friend. And of course, at the time, I was aware that I was judging her. So I worked really hard to be friends. I knew that was an unhealthy thing. So I would set it aside. Our kids all became close. They've continued to be friends with me even all these years after I left California. They've driven to Indiana and gone the extra mile to come see us in Ohio. We did manage to have a friendship, and we could not possibly be more different from each other. But I had to recognize and overcome my own judgment first. And this is with someone way outside of homeschooling. So now let's bring it into the homeschooling context. You're in a co-op. All these moms have a different perspective than you. Well, that happened to me. I started out in a co-op where I did share most of the perspectives, and then slowly but surely, my perspective on my religion changed, and my ability to wholeheartedly agree with the statement of faith of this group changed. I spoke with the leaders, and their statement of faith became a statement of values, and they decided that you didn't have to actually believe the contents of this statement. You just had to be willing not to teach against them in whatever category you were in. So in this co-op, they had a view about evolution and creationism that I didn't share, but I wasn't going to teach about that. I was teaching writing. So those are the kinds of things that you want to keep in mind. Find out if you can talk to your community about being aware that people evolve. They have shifts in understanding. That doesn't mean that you can't have a group that has a set of principles, because sometimes the principles are part of the cohesive nature of the group. But make space for people who don't have the identical beliefs, because beliefs change. Oh, it's really rare. But yeah, Barb, who ran our co-op, is brilliant. She just has this ability to understand people. So if you're running a co-op, I submit that to you as a possibility. If you have a secular co-op and you have religious people coming into your co-op, how do you treat them? Vice versa. How do you include people? But how do you also have the co-op that you want to have? It needs to be both. One of the things about our school styles that can be really troubling. I found this when I was teaching in our co-op. Some families were really about having a daily lesson that the kids were supposed to do and complete on their own at home. And then other families were very relaxed and didn't care about the outcome of a class. They didn't mind if their kids didn't do homework. And so I had to work through that myself and think, what is my philosophy? How do I understand homeschooling and teaching in this context? Here's what I came up with, and maybe this will help some of you in a similar situation. I decided that bottom line, homeschooling responsibility goes to the parent. It doesn't go to the child. So I create lessons or do whatever I expect them to do in class. But if they don't turn in an assignment, I never graded anyone down. In fact, they could not do anything in my class, and that was okay with me because I figure the parent is in charge. So at the front end of the class, this is what I would say. We're going to read these books. There's going to be this set of questions. There will be this writing project coming up. I'm going to give you due dates. If I get your work by the due date, I'm happy to take your mom's job and give the feedback and give you a score or a grade or whatever it is you want. If you don't want a score or grade, I'm happy to just give feedback. But if I don't get it by that due date, then I'm going to assume your mother wants that job and she'll do it. And there will be no incompletes, no Fs, no punishments for being late because we're homeschoolers. This isn't school. And I'm not about forcing you into a school box if that isn't what you want. You can participate in my class, not do any of the work, and get benefit. So that was how I addressed difference inside of a co-op as a teacher without shaming people for not doing what schoolish expectations require. So if you're teaching in a co-op or you have a child in a co-op class, maybe that model will help you. If you're in a class with a teacher who is really serious about this schoolish thing and you're not into it, please talk to your teacher first. Talk to that mother and say to her, you know what? We're unschoolers. My child wants to be in your class. He probably won't do any of the work. I'm just looking forward to him hearing the brilliance that comes from your mouth that isn't from mine. So I just want you to know that up front. We won't be worrying so much about him turning in assignments on time. And if he doesn't turn them in on time, don't worry. I'll supervise him at home and give him feedback. Wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't that change how you feel about each other? So this is the kind of thing I want you to urge you to do. Own the facts. Homeschoolers are not all alike. They're not all alike. How can you accommodate that in a meaningful way? Yes, Karen, communication is key, but you have to know what you're communicating about. So often a homeschool co-op mom will be like, if it's not in by Sunday, then I'm going to start taking 10% off and then 20% off. And I've literally heard co-op mothers, because I was in a co-op for, 12 years, I've heard them say things like, we have to get them ready for school. After all, in school, they don't let you turn in things late. They start marking you down. I'm here to tell you, I had kids in public high school. They don't necessarily mark you down. They make all kinds of exceptions for students when they have good reasons. They are all about navigating and negotiating relationships in school. And that's true in college. So don't create these artificial constraints and force them on homeschool. It makes homeschooling feel really stupid. Instead, think about what you're doing. Why are you having this co-op? Well, in our case, the main reason for the co-op was social. Just to have kids hang out together once a week without having to schedule play dates with 30 different people, right? They're together once a week. Secondly, to get a break. So I don't have to be the person to think of everything my kids are learning, so that someone else can give thoughtful attention to a subject area and I don't have to. When you have 5 different ages of kids and all the subjects for each one, that felt great. And we were all about doing the electives anyway. I had my kids doing acting and taekwondo and how to make a board game because we could do the core stuff at home. It was fun to take advantage of a co-op for the things I didn't want to do at home. So those are some of the things you can think about in a co-op context. Now, just in a social relational group, make a group. There are 2 ways to handle the differences. You can make a group that is centered around exploring a philosophy. Doesn't mean everybody's committed to it. I created a Charlotte Mason group in my home that ran for about a year. We met, how often did we meet? We might have met once a month. Maybe we met longer. It might have been longer than a year because I was a part of a Dayton, Ohio, Charlotte Mason steering committee for a while. And then I did this local group. So it could have been a couple years. But in any case, we met in my home about once a month. And the goal of it was to explore Charlotte Mason, not to enforce Charlotte Mason. And so I would just pick a topic. We would do some assigned reading from one of Charlotte Mason's books, and then we would get together and everybody would share how they interpreted that idea. And then we ate snacks. And that's all we did. There was no arguing. There was no requirement. It was fine if all you did was show up and listen and didn't actually implement anything. What was really cool about it was that I learned ideas for how to implement Charlotte Mason that were different than what my own imagination conjured. So I had all these different ideas to consider in my own family. And it was wonderful. But did you hear that I said it was only like a year or 2? I didn't do that for 10 years. Because once we had explored it, then I wanted to explore something else. That's my personality. So if you want to explore unschooling, explore classical education, explore Thomas Jefferson, whatever you're into, gather some people who might be curious about it with you and have snacks and talk. Assign a little reading, hang out together, facilitate some conversation, and then move on. Try not to stake a claim like you are not a true unschooler unless you do X, Y, Z. I have heard of Thomas Jefferson education, and I've read some about it, and the people who love it are huge fans. I never actually practiced it, so I'm not a good person to give you feedback. But go find the people who are fans and let them teach you, and then start your own exploratory journey with a group of people who are interested. That's what I'd do. Yeah, you're not out to prove anything. Proving that you are a legit anything, what does it get you? What does it get you to prove that you are a true BraveWriter fan or a true BraveWriter lifestyle implementer? What does it get you? Well, it doesn't get you anything from me because I'm not sending you any swag, right? What does it do for you to be a true Charlotte Mason person? What does it do? I'm asking that. That's a sincere question. Why do you think people imagine that they have to have like some kind of proof or credential? You want a Julie badge? You can make one, and then you can share it with me. I want to see what it would look like. I'm looking. It makes you feel like your choices are justified. Feeling of belonging. Validation. To feel good enough. These are perfect. Candidate, nothing put, let's see. Shore up your insecurities. Validate. Identify. Combat insecurity. Identity, undue pressure. Perfect. Okay, so here's what's crazy. This is perfect. Whenever you become a diehard of something, it doesn't relieve pressure. It increases it. It increases it. You know why? Because the second you put that much pressure on a system to fulfill your expectations, now you cannot look left or right. You can't consider any other options. You are trapped in the system. And that's a horrible feeling. And then worse, your kids have to be the poster children for this system to prove that your faithful commitment is justified. It's the opposite of what you expect. It is so much better if you just start out with, kind of curious about this. We're going to play with it. We're going to see where it leads us. I want to do this. You know, I remember going to my very first La Leche League meeting. Noah was a baby. He loved his pacifier. We traveled a ton. He had lived in Morocco. We had been all over the States, driving around in a car. He had no crib. And in my first La Leche League meeting, I was worried that if I showed up with a pacifier, I wouldn't get to hear good information about breastfeeding. So I left it in the car because I was so worried I'd get judged. I walked into that meeting, there were bottles and pacifiers everywhere and breastfeeders, which shows you what a great group it was. They were learning how to breastfeed. Women who were bottle feeders currently were welcome. Women who were breast pumping were welcome. Women who used pacifiers for their babies were welcome. It was such a relief. I even wore Birkenstocks to that meeting. I still remember because I thought I probably need to look like a natural person. Like, you know, you remember, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? I was like in my 20s. Of course, I was worried about what I was going to wear to an Orange County La Leche League meeting. I'm like, how do I show that I'm not into makeup and I'm an earth mama? Like, really? Seriously. So silly. No dreadlocks, but I don't think I wore lipstick. So anyway, and then I found out, oh wait, you can use a pacifier and wear lipstick at this meeting. This is awesome. Yeah. We want unique human beings, right? Aren't we trying to raise our children to know who they are and take risks and adventures and become individuals? Well, then don't be a cookie cutter homeschooler. Be your own person. Be the kind of person that you aspire to be, whatever that is. Yeah. So let's get back real quick then to this idea of how do you facilitate good relationships with your friends who aren't on this scope, who are still eyeing you and judging and trying to evaluate if what you're doing makes sense and if what they're doing is okay. Well, you start the ball rolling. Name it. Say it out loud. And this leads us perfectly to healing the shame that binds you. Let me explain why. When we attach or fix ourselves on a specific ideology, we are covering up shame. We're covering up fear. We're covering up the part of us that is insecure and afraid that if we get exposed, we'll be a fraud. That's what shame is. So if you are embarking on this brand new educational model called homeschooling, and you already are laden with some insecurities and some feelings of, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this task, you will latch on to an ideology and hope that that ideology will guarantee the outcome, because you know inside of yourself you're not strong enough to guarantee anything. So you latch on and you grip it for dear life. It is shame that is preventing you from flexibility. Shame makes you attach really strongly and limit your options, because then you think, okay, I am protected from failure. Someone else has already worked out the system, whether it's religious, whether it is political or academic, all same stuff, or nutrition or financial or nationality. These are all ways that we get too fixed, and then we think that saves us, instead of learning how to own our own vulnerability. You're all bringing up Brené Brown. I've read some of her, but you know who I love? He's from ages ago. John Bradshaw. John Bradshaw is from the 80s. When I started reading Brené Brown, I'm like, is she reading John Bradshaw? The other person that I read was, these are all very dated. So go ahead and read Brené, because she's awesome. Alice Miller, Drama of the Gifted Child. Both of them did in the 80s what Brené is reviving right now in the 21st century. So when I first started hearing her talk about shame and vulnerability, I'm like, doesn't everyone already know this? But that's only because, oh yeah, Mary Piper, oh, she's incredible too. Because, you know, I was a new adult in the 80s. I was immediately in therapy. You know, we were barely married, and then we were in and out of therapy for years because we were dealing with alcoholism in the original family and abuse and all kinds of stuff that automatically came up. And these were the key voices in helping me understand what shame is. So let's just go over a thumbnail sketch. I want to read you some quotes from John Bradshaw, because you're all already reading Brené Brown, and I thought it would be fun just to hear somebody that you don't know. So here's one of his top quotes from this book, and I just think it's a great one to start with. And I've got this open on my computer, so I'm going to look away, but I am still connected. All right, here's what he says. Hell, in my opinion, is never finding your true self and never living your own life or knowing who you are. Oh, there's a place to start. Hell, in my opinion, is never finding your true self and never living your own life or knowing who you are. When I talk about awesome adulting, I talk about self-care, I talk about flexibility. This is what it is the antidote to. To find your true self, you cannot hitch your wagon to an ideology. Otherwise, you're just a copy. You're not actually yourself. This is John Bradshaw. This is John Bradshaw from Healing the Shame That Binds You. It's this book. I'm going to show it again in case you want to take a quick screenshot. Healing the Shame That Binds You. It's really old. It's ancient book. Let me tell you when it was published. 1993 is the most recent one. No. 1988. Ha, it's even older. 1988, and the revised edition came out in 2005. So, I mean, this is old. I got married in 84, and I read this in 88 when it came out, and it blew my doors off. Let me read you another quote. Since the earliest period of our life was pre-verbal, everything depended on emotional interaction. Without someone to reflect our emotions, we had no way of knowing who we are. So as you think about shame, shame comes from not having a mirror, not having someone value and know you as you are. One of the reasons that this scoping community is getting along so well is you can't shock me. And I hope I'm modeling that for the rest of us. It's okay to show up as you are, incomplete, bumbling along, haven't done school for a year, are ashamed and embarrassed that you don't love all your children, worried about your marriage, angry at your church. There's nothing you can say that's going to bother me, because that's who you are right now. And that's what you can do for your kids. If we are going to eliminate or at least minimize shame in our families, we have to take people with what they offer, with where they are right now, not where we thought they should have been by now or where they're going to be or what we expect them to be. We got to start with who they are. The only way you can have a secure center is if you can help your children, help yourself, help your spouse, help yourself be real about where you are right now and not feel like it means something bad about you. It doesn't mean something bad about you. Someone asked me, did I know this when my kids were small? Well, yeah. Was I effective at it? I guess we're finding out. All my kids have been in therapy. I mean, I'm divorced, so you already know, excuse my French, that shit went down in my family, right? I don't have a perfect family. There's pain there. There's stuff to overcome. Even with all my insight, I still made big mistakes because I was young. I was growing. I was learning. And what I want you to know is that it's okay to be growing and learning. Of course you're going to make some mistakes. You're bringing all that baggage from your own childhood. How many of you had perfect childhoods? Anybody? Some of you had better childhoods than other, and that's really helpful. But everybody has stuff they bring with them to adulthood. Everyone. And all of us are navigating the best we can. Do I think I did some things really well with my kids? Yes, I do. I think one of the things I did well was read a lot of these books and continue to be interested in therapy and personal growth. I think that has been a model for me from my own mother, and it's something I've tried to pass on to my children. Let's read another one. Okay, this one's really good. Ready? To be shame-bound means that whenever you feel any feeling, need, or drive, you immediately feel ashamed. The dynamic core of your human life is grounded in your feelings, needs, and drives. When these are bound by shame, you are shamed to the core. So what does that mean? It means if you have a feeling, a need, or a drive, you actually feel not eligible to have those met. Oh, I would love to be an artist, but I will never be good enough. I really need a hug right now, but you know what? Everybody looks busy. I shouldn't ask for it. It's really important for me to have this kitchen table cleared off before I make dinner. But you know what? Maybe it's okay that it's messy because the kids like it messy, right? This is exactly what shame is. Shame is devaluing your own feelings, needs, and drives. And you know who's really good at doing that? Women. Women. Yeah, people pleasers. Of course. Here's what I discovered. I actually had the belief that if everybody else's needs were met, then it was okay for me to get a need met. But until everybody else in the family was happy, I couldn't take care of me. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to read comments. That's why I'm a little bit stalling. I just want to make sure. So in other words, you're in your house and you think, I really need to sit down, read through this book, have a cup of tea, but I've got a toddler that needs to be chased down and a diaper changed. I've got 3 kids who are really haggling at each other right now. I've got a husband coming home in 10 minutes and dinner better be cooking or he's going to be angry. And I know that I've got to pay bills because the creditors are coming. So then you think to yourself, all right, I'm going to nurse the toddler really quick and whip off the diaper. I'm going to stick a DVD into the DVD player and get the 3 kids happy. I'm going to throw onions on the stove so that the house smells like food is cooking. And then I'm going to have a moment of peace to read that one blog that I knew I needed to read because it's going to change my life. And you get halfway through that and you never get there because the husband walks in, he's in a bad mood, or the video suddenly breaks, or the toddler is pulling off the diaper you just put on, right? And so you end up thinking, this moment is never going to come. This moment's never going to come. So it takes this weird self-assertion to declare this moment is coming and we're going to make sure it happens. We're going to either hire a babysitter or I'm going to ensure that I don't have to make dinner on Wednesday nights, or, we're going to come up with a way that this feeling, need, or drive gets met. Because otherwise, what are we role modeling for the next generation, especially of daughters? The same thing. Yeah, if you advocate for you, you're unwittingly giving your children permission to advocate for themselves. And that's important. That's important. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how we attach to ideology as a way to secure ourselves, to hide from our shame, and to feel like if I just follow these rules, I will be safe from ridicule, persecution, critique, and failure, right? Those are the ones. Listen to what John Bradshaw says about that feeling of righteousness we get when we align ourselves too closely to ideas and practices instead of our core sense of self. The feeling of righteousness is the core mood alteration among religious addicts. Religious addiction is a massive problem in our society. It may be the most pernicious of all addictions because it's so hard for a person to break the delusion and denial. How can anything be wrong with loving God and giving your life for good works and service to mankind? So I'm going there. I'm going to bring this up. I know it's a dangerous thing to bring up on a homeschool scope. So let me talk about it for a minute. This is not the same thing as having a spiritual life or a faith. And I know you know the difference. It's the same thing as being overly attached to a homeschool philosophy. They're not different. So I'm going to change the wording here so I can apply it to homeschool. The feeling of righteousness is the core mood alteration among home educators. Home education addiction is a massive problem in the homeschooling world. It may be the most pernicious of all addictions in education because it's so hard for a person to break the delusion and denial. How can anything be wrong with educating our own children and giving my life for good works and service to my kids? You can substitute anything in there. You can substitute anything. It's ideological attachment. You should have a spiritual life, whatever that looks like. Atheists have spiritual lives. They read poetry. They admire nature. They are moved by falling in love and having an orgasm. These are spiritual experiences. So you can have them with a faith. You can have your prayer and Bible reading in the morning. You can trust God for your future. You can be involved in your church. But when it becomes ideological, when the feeling of self-righteousness takes over, you're dealing from shame. You're not actually dealing from confidence. You are clinging to an idea and hoping it will save you from failure. And none of us get saved from failure. Life is relentless. It comes at you like a steam train. You can have the best faith in the world or the least faith in the world, and both of you can get cancer. So we don't want to hang our whole well-being on following the rules as a way to save us. We want to look at principles, practices, and opportunities for growth, because it's all the same thing. We're growing. And home educators have the opportunity to live that in such a beautiful way, to showcase a genuine daily life, because we aren't serving a system. We're not in a school district. I hope this is helpful. Have I stepped on anyone's toes? Please speak up if I overstated something. I'm always worried that I'm going to do that, and I don't want to. I really don't. I value anyone's personal perspective on the world, religion. My goodness, I teach theology. I'm not against religious faith. So I want you to know that up front. Okay, good. You're getting it. Good. It's really challenging to talk about. It's so threatening. Yeah. Ah, good, 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 good. It looks like this group gets it anyway. Yes, awesome. Good. Thank you for putting it into the comments so I know. I'm not against anyone. I'm absolutely not. Yeah, religion is different than your relationship with God. Of course, if you're the kind of person for whom a relationship with God is important, you will nurture that. The danger is when we get pulled in to this belief structure that says my relationship with God is not effective or happening in the way that it's supposed to based on this criteria that people give us, right? If things are personal, they're personal. Listen to this. The most paradoxical aspect of neurotic shame is that it is the core motivator of the superachieved and the underachieved, the star and the scapegoat, the righteous and the wretched, the powerful and the pathetic. In other words, when you have shame, you are either tempted to overachieve or you're blaming yourself all the time for underachievement. How many of you know both of those experiences? It's that feeling of, oh my God, I'll never be a good enough homeschooler. That is caused by the same thing as, wow, I am so much better as a homeschooler than her over there with her kids in the school. Like I can feel both things at the same time, can't you? I can look at someone with school kids and think, wow, I'm so good. We homeschool. And then I can turn around and look at a homeschooler and think, God, I suck. I will never be as good a homeschooler as her. Haven't you had both of those? They're both motivated from the exact same space. It's that neurotic shame. There you go. Thanks, Jen, for sharing what you shared. Jen Pepito. Yes, good. Humility isn't shame. No, humility is appropriate. Shame is the feeling of self-loathing. Humility is great. I mean, I hope I'm humble. I try to share with you all the time my mistakes, things that I think I do well, things that I didn't do well. Humility is just sober self-assessment and not needing everybody to tell you how great you are in order to feel secure, right? So humility is simply that feeling of awareness that I have limits and I'm willing to offer those. I don't have to disguise them or pretend them away. Here's a good example. You know how you have humility in a marriage? It's where you're aware that you don't have to always convince people that you have a great marriage. It's the awareness that, yep, pretty much everybody has challenges that they have to work on. Does that mean you have a bad marriage? No. It means that your marriage has some great strengths. It means that you're aware of its limits and you can share both equally and not feel anything about yourself when you do. Okay, we've been going on for an hour. I want to see if there is one other quote that I was going to tell you. Oh, yeah. So let's end on this quote because I think it's fabulous. To truly be committed to a life of honesty. Oh, I'm going to start that over because I'm stumbling. Okay, this is from John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. To truly be committed to a life of honesty, love, and discipline, we must be willing to commit ourselves to reality. Oh my gosh. That is the best one. That is the best one. That's what we have to end on. Because here's the deal. I will show the book again. Here's the book. Healing the Shame That Binds You. John Bradshaw. Tell the freaking truth. See? That's our other hashtag. Tell the freaking truth. I'm going to read it again. Ready? To truly be committed to a life of honesty, love, and discipline, we must be willing to commit ourselves to reality. Here's what I mean by this. Here's what I think John means by it based on my reading of him over the years. Don't prop up the illusion, no matter what you think it's going to cost you. Don't prop up the illusion, no matter what you think it's going to cost you. Tell the truth. Deal with reality. So let's look at this in a homeschooling context. You've got a 16-year-old kid who is refusing to do any kind of homeschooling work. You are at loggerheads fighting. You can't pretend that away. Don't tell other people he's fine. Don't pretend that it's okay with you. You have to start from the nitty-gritty truth that this child is not interested in whatever you're offering. There's no way to mask it or hide it. You can't coerce him into it. You've got to deal with what's so. And when you start to tell the truth, you will have a new set of friends, because everybody loves truth tellers. Do you know, I lived in this city, in Cincinnati, for about 10 or 12 years and had never had a single conversation about my marriage. And when my marriage started to have problems and I started to talk about it, suddenly I had friends. Because there were people who had problems like mine and they didn't have anyone to talk to either. You tell the truth about your homeschool, you'll find friends. You'll find them. And they may not even have the same homeschooling philosophy as you. But you'll be able to share from that place of reality and truth-telling. Someone is asking for the Alice Miller book. So the one that I checked out, actually, I haven't read. The one that I love that is hers is The Drama of the Gifted Child. But they didn't have it in my library. So I'm going to have to find it somewhere else. But I checked this one out because I love her and I've never read it. It's called Paths of Life, 7 Scenarios. And I'm not sure what it's about. So I'll be interested to find that out. It looks like it is a set of sort of profiles of people who have dealt with reality. Yeah, my closest friends are the ones who share my humor, don't care that I swear and tell truth to me. Right. And you know what? It's okay if your closest friends are the people who also just like hanging out with you. Like, you don't always have to tell the truth. One of the big joys of moving from California to Ohio was that I got to hang out with people who didn't constantly analyze their process. It was such a relief to like just go to a park and play and chat about nothing instead of having to analyze myself all the time. I love that about Ohio. Oh my gosh. I had so many fun friends and we would just like go and chat about movies. It was awesome. Yeah, and like rock music and right. So you need both. You need your intimate buddies who will let you call them in the middle of the night and cry on their shoulders. And then you need some people who just chill, right? Just chill. Not everything has to be dire self-examination like it was in Los Angeles. Oh my gosh. No kidding. The Midwest has been so healthy for my temperament. I love it so much. Fun friends and deep friends. Perfectly put, Allison. Absolutely. And go for public school friends and homeschool friends. It's good to cross-pollinate. You're going to learn things from people who are different from you, and that's always a good thing. Okay, one more time on this book. The Drama of the Gifted Child by Alice Miller was the one that I found really helpful in the 80s. She's controversial, so please don't assume that everything in her book is what I would endorse. She's just provocative. She's an interesting writer. And then I do really like John Bradshaw. But you know what? Brené Brown, read her. She's current. You know, he revised in 2005, so that's good. I love his writing. You saw all that good stuff there. But Brené's great. She's modern. She's current. She's in the moment. She's dealing with the same ideas. I just wanted to use someone I knew well. I don't know her well. So I thought that would be helpful. All right. So we've gone over an hour. I always think that's the magic time to end. If you're new to this scope, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. BraveWriter.com is my website. CoachJulieBogart.com is where we talk about all these issues in depth and have a lot of personal contact and build around these ideas of shame-free homeschooling and learning how to really support your individual unique vision. Love you all. Oh, thank you, Betsy, for liking my smile. Yeah, newbies are like, who the heck is that woman? Run the other direction. Holy smokes. Yeah, it was a lot to think about. And I just want to end with a disclaimer, because it's always really important for me to say this. I love people of all different backgrounds, religious, non-religious, homeschooling, not homeschooling, bottle feeding, breastfeeding, home birthing, epidural out the wazoo. Like all of those people, all of you have taught me important lessons about life and myself. We can all be authentic, healed, emotionally well, amazing human beings with flaws and failings in any of those situations, any of those systems. So I'm on your team. I just want you to know that. I'm on your team. And thank you for being on mine, because I benefit from it too. All right, so let's have a little cheers, group hug, tea drink. Now you know what I mean when I say live honestly, write bravely. I'm Julie Bogart from BraveWriter. Thanks for your great questions. Join us on the Bravescope's Facebook group to talk more. Cheers to all of you. Have a fabulous Saturday, and I'll be back scoping next week. Don't forget, Monday is online class registration day with BraveWriter at 12 noon, okay? So sign up for classes. It was bonanza time in winter. Hopefully it won't be quite so overwhelming on spring. Bye, everybody. Mwah.